So it's so interesting in this time of COVID-19 and coronavirus that the sacrifices of so many people and this thing that has devastated our way of life, our economy, has at the very same time given us so much time to reflect, time to disconnect, time to really think about what's important to us and what's important for us, and spend time with our family and our loved ones, and catch up on things that life was really not giving us the opportunity to accomplish because of our hectic schedules and our overbooking and constant need to stay busy and be a part of everything. And so the interesting thing is, it seems as if COVID 19 has given the earth an opportunity to reset as well as its children. So we saw ozone layers being repaired. We saw sea turtles that were able to get on the beach and hatch 10,000 eggs because there were no humans on the beach. And we also saw an opportunity for people to really realize the heinous behavior that many had been justifying, ignoring, maybe feeling overwhelmed and feeling as if, what can I do about it? That's horrible, that's terrible, but we can get into a web of excuses. But because we've had to sit and center ourselves, I think it just became a moment where people had to say, is this the society that I want to live in? Is this the way of life that I want my children to become accustomed to and to think is somehow normal? Because it's gone on so long that it's actually normalized. And I don't know if everyone really realizes the impetus for what the police actually stand for. The police actually came from slave patrols, which were people who basically went out as bounty hunters to find people who had escaped to freedom, people who simply wanted to be free, figured out a way to leave, gathered up the courage and the guts to say, I want to be free. I want a better way of life. I want life, liberty, and I want to pursue my own happiness. And there were people who made a living capturing them and selling them back. There were actually people who would capture people who already were free and would sell them into slavery. And how could you prove that you were free? There was no way. So there's actually people who that is actually their reality. They were free, and because they were Black, they were captured and sold into slavery from being a free human being right here in the US. So there's so many stories. And even in the 13th Amendment, where there was a statute inside of it and a clause saying that no one shall be enslaved unless it is as a punishment of a crime. Well, then there became these different laws that we call the Black codes. And they were things like standing around, things like not having a proven way of life, or loitering, or trespassing. So if people were actually taking the voyage to go from the South and move up north, as they did in what we call the Great Migration, they could be pulled over, and not having any documentation of where they should be, they could actually be thrown in jail and put on what was called chain gangs. They built railroads. They worked as basically slave labor for many, many years, some for the rest of their lives, simply because they could not validate where they were and where they were going. So the criminal justice system became the new form of slavery, a legalized form of slavery. And so we see corporations all over the country that have invested into the prison trade, not to help people to develop a new set of skills so that they can come out and be autonomous, but to continue to house people. And a lot of those prisons have contracts with major retailers where those prisoners work for 50 cents a day, creating lingerie or clothing for other brands that we would buy and purchase for 30, 40, $50. And the person who actually created it in the US got paid 50 cents for the day, 35 cents for the day in some places. It is a horrendous cycle. And so I think that in this time, it gave people the opportunity to say, what function do the police serve in our society? And how is that function actually a representation of the type of society that we want to have normalized? And right now, it doesn't. Policing should be about relationships. I live in the suburbs, and I think here, that's what I see. I see police who actually have relationships because they live in this community. One of our rappers, Meek Mill, put up a great proposal the other day where he said, in African American areas, at least 50% of the police force should be African American. Let people develop those relationships. That's what we see in Camden, New Jersey, who in, I believe, 2012 had one of the worst records in the country of police brutality. And it was absolutely a horrendous department. They took the steps necessary based on the pressure from the community and numerous state and federal reports on how bad the corruption was. They defunded the police. They restructured everything. They rehired about 100 of those police officers who didn't have huge files. But by defunding them, it gave them the opportunity to set new criterion by which people had to apply. It took away the power of the police union that basically covers and protects any and everything that someone does, even putting people back out on the streets after they've killed someone. It's too powerful. It's just entirely too powerful, too forgiving of them, and too unforgiving of the citizen. But what we see now in Camden is that their rate of crime has reduced by 50%. So we know there have to be options. There just absolutely has to be options. And that's really the mentality that we have to have. What can we do different? Yes, this is what we're used to, but what we're used to is not working for everybody. And unfortunately, it's not working for a lot of people. And it's literally costing people their lives. So can we take a moment, take a step back and say, it may not directly affect me, but I see it directing my other fellow citizens, my fellow human beings. How can I be a part of the change? How can I support something that we can one day look back and say, yeah, we ended that. That was crazy. Our grandchildren can say, wait, they used to do that? Oh my God, I saw this footage of them, killing this man in broad daylight. And we can say to our children and our children's children, yeah, it was crazy. There were some things happening that never should have happened. But we stood up. We changed that. That's why you guys don't have to deal with it. And that's why you guys have a better world. We can reflect on this time and realize that it is a call to justice. It is a call for all of us to show up and to raise our highest vibration, because this is the world that our children will inherit from us. And inevitably, they will ask, which side were you on? We want to give them the right answer.